Are you looking for a new mortgage? Get unbiased advice from our team of experts at the Nottingham Mortgage Services. Secure the right deal, and you could save money on your mortgage. Visit thenottingham.com/mortgages and let us help.
So for a little bit of background, because obviously we've got a lot of new fans around who might not know who Jamie Leach is. If you could just give us a bit of background into where hockey came into your life.
Wow. Well, I was kind of born into it. My dad played hockey in the National Hockey League for, I think it was 13 years. He played, quite a few games in NHL, and I was literally born, right when he was kind of getting into his professional career. So all I remember growing up is hockey. Somewhere in my office here, I have my little skates hanging around, my very first pair of skates that hang in my office. So literally when I started to walk, my dad threw a pair of skates on me, and I was a rink rat ever since then. Every chance I had a chance to go to the rink with him, I went, and that just carried out throughout my life. Even when he was playing, and if there was a Saturday skate, I'd be up early getting him up out of bed because I wanted to go down to the rink and skate, because usually, they weren't skating at the local rink; they were skating at at their facility. So there was no one before them, no one after. So I used to get on the ice when I was younger, before the Flyers, and just skate around. I literally would be on the ice until the Flyers would kind of come on the ice. And then I always tell the story, then Bobby Clark would come on the ice, and he'd be one of the last guys on the ice, but he would come on the ice and always kick me off, right? So then I'd go off, undo my skates, and run around the rink or go in the locker room and steal all their gum or whatever, and then I'd come back and sit there on the bench with my skates on, and as soon as Bobby Clark walked off the ice, I'd jump back on the ice and start skating again. So I was kind of born into it. It's been in my blood. My dad played, and it's just something that I always wanted to do.
There was never any doubt that you were going to be anything other than a hockey player as you continued to grow up.
That was my plan. Maybe we'll talk about it later, but an author just wrote a book
Absolutely.
on myself. And one of the stories in the book is my mom saying that I was going to tell her that I want to quit going to school because I want to be a hockey player. And then I was young. I was 5 or 6 years old, and she's like, "Well, no, that's not really how it works, Shane." So absolutely. So from day one, hockey was hopefully going to be my life, and it has been, right? And which is I'm so fortunate.
Does that mean you're a Flyers fan then as well?
Well, it's funny. I was a Flyers fan until I got drafted by the Penguins, right? And, so it's funny because I have lots of, people that I still keep in touch with on social media back in Philadelphia when I went to high school there and went to school there, and, they're big Flyers fans. So we always go back and forth. And the best thing about the Flyers Penguins kind of rivalry right now is the Penguins have been so much more successful than the Flyers. So I kind of, I've gotten 3 or 4 dinners out of my dad every time they meet in the playoffs. We always have a bet who's going to buy dinner, and so I always have that one over on all my 5 Flyers fans.
Well, I'm going to ask you a bit of a ridiculous question now. I'm going to ask you to compare Pittsburgh, Philadelphia to Nottingham, Sheffield. Is it similar? Is it completely different?
You know what? It's different, and the reason is because Philadelphia. I mean, so Philadelphia is really close to New York City, really close to New York Island. It's really close to Washington. They're actually closer to those 3 cities than they are Pittsburgh. So I would say there's more of a rivalry between the Flyers fans and let's say the Rangers fans, even Washington fans, than there are Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. But there still is a rivalry. Don't get me wrong. I mean, people in Philadelphia just do not like the Penguins. They can't stand Crosby, right? They just. I have a picture of someone photoshopped Crosby in a Flyers jersey, and I keep posting, "You guys wish," right? And of course, I get all these comments back. So, but it's definitely close. But I mean, all teams in that area, like they're so close together. That they're always really good games when they play each other. And even Pittsburgh and Washington is especially with Ovechkin and Crosby playing, is a real. Even when I played there, it was pretty intense as well. We always seem to we always seem to have a bench clearing brawl or something like it against Washington.
Well, we'll get into bench clearing brawls again a little bit later.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
How could you forget?
Well, I didn't forget. I just recalled it now.
Let's say you said you were drafted by the Penguins. When you go into that draft, is it different to how it is these days? Because I think there were more rounds back then, weren't there? But you were still drafted in the third round, so you would have still gone.
I was the third round.
Do you find out who's going to draft you beforehand? Like, do you have an idea it's going to be Pittsburgh?
No, I just sat in the stands, and you're sitting there, and all of a sudden they say, "Hey, the Pittsburgh Penguins pick from the Hamilton Steelhawks, Jamie Leach." And you're like, "Oh, hey, that's me!" And I get up and run down and meet the Penguins and take a picture, go say hi to everybody, and then and there's like a little gathering after. But now I think the first round is one day, one day, and then they come back and do the next. I don't even know how many rounds there are now, but there's not as many as, I think there's 7 maybe. I think that makes sense. But when I got drafted, they did the whole draft in one day. It was 1 to 12. It was 12 rounds. It was a long. I was lucky enough to go in the third round. I mean, the guy that I went with from my team, he actually got drafted in like the 10th round. So after I got drafted, I had to sit in the stands with my buddy until the whole round again.
You walk into a Pittsburgh Penguins like locker room that's full of these amazing players, like Mario Lemieux is there, sort of thing. Is he a guy who just has like a presence when you're around him?
Absolutely. He's one of those guys that when he walks in their room, especially when you don't know him, or it's different when he's your teammate. He walks around, he's just a teammate of yours. But when I first met him, or my first couple camps, he was he walks in the room and, hey, that's the best player in the world. And I was fortunate enough, my first training camp. What you do in training camp, back then, they used to make like 4 different teams. And then you'd practice as a team for, maybe a couple days. And then you'd have kind of like a mini tournament. And not really tournament win-loss. It's a lot of gameplay. And I was lucky enough to be on Mario's team my first year. So I went through the off-ice training with him. And I spent actually a lot of time, around Mario, my first camp. One of the last games of the camp, his winger got hurt, like halfway through the game. So I actually was lucky enough to get put on his line for the last half of the game. And so we're playing, and and all of a sudden we come off, and he looks at and taps you, and he goes, "Hey, bud, here's what's gonna happen." It's like, you're gonna go get the puck, you're gonna look for me, and you're gonna pass me the puck, and then you're gonna go to the net with your stick on the ice. So that's what I did for the last, the last half of the game. I'm working like a madman, getting the puck, and look up, and there he is. I just throw it in his directions. I don't know where it was. He always got the puck. He was just one of those guys that just could gobble up anything. And then boom, head down, flying to the net. I had pucks going off my ass, off my shins, off my everything. I scored like 2 goals the last game just because going to the net and just banging things in the net. Mario told me to go to the net. So that's the kind of person he was. He was a really good guy. Not a big rah guy, but when he did step in the locker room, everyone kind of, step up in the locker room and say something, everyone kind of definitely listened.
And do you feel like any kind of pressure? Because the Pittsburgh Penguins is an organization of consequence, is what I'll call them. They're an important team in the NHL. Does that add more pressure to you as a rookie? Not
so much back then. Remember, when I came in the league, the reason why they got Mario is because how bad they were. Right. So when I went to the Penguins, he was, I don't know, 4th or 5th year, something like that, maybe, so they were just kind of coming up, and we still weren't that strong, 2-3 years down, when we won back-to-back Stanley Cups, that's when we were kind of getting, like you said, a team that had some relevance in the National Hockey League. For me, I grew up around that league my entire life. Right. I mean, so there was no pressure on me like that, just because I was, walking into a room with Mario Lemieux, I wasn't starstruck. I just knew who he was. I mean, I had Bobby Clark coming to my house for supper, and I'm going to his place, and, all these great hockey players that I met around that I've been lucky enough to call friends now that, I was never starstruck. The first year Paul Coffey was in camp, he sat next to me in the locker room. It was phenomenal. I sat there and talked to Paul Coffey every day for how long. So, I was never starstruck. but I appreciate it more now as an adult, and being through the process, and how lucky I was to know a lot of these guys on a personal level, not just playing as a professional myself, but even growing up around these great hockey players.
What's it like when Yager comes in there with his mullet and everything on show?
Well, Yager was one of us. Remember, my second or third year was Yarmir's first year. So it was myself, Jimmy Paek, Paul Stanton, and Jaromir Jagr. We used to we were kind of like the four younger guys on the team, and so we'd always hang around. Of course, we kept bugging Jagr about cutting his hair, and he wasn't having any of that at all. He was so proud of his hair. But he could hardly speak a lick of English. Like it was quite funny, and but he was a pretty smart guy. He learned pretty quick, and he was definitely a target. There's no doubt. I mean, a lot of the older players would play some tricks on him, and because who he was a little bit arrogant, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He was a very confident person, right? And he shouldn't be. He was a great hockey player when he was 18 years old when he came with us. But a lot of the veterans would play some tricks on him. Like he'd fall asleep on a plane, take his shoes off, and one of the guys would take one of his shoes. So now all of a sudden he had to walk to the airport with one shoe. But he was smart. He would carry the shoe in his hand and walk in the airport with socks. He wouldn't have one shoe on. So, things like that. I mean, that's just how it was back then. You're a first year player, especially if you're a player that commanded attention somehow. You're going to get maybe not the attention that you wanted.
And we got our first Panthers link there then. So if you tell me about your first experiences with Jim Paek.
Well, so I played against Pac-Man when I played in junior in the Ontario League. He played for the Oshawa Generals, and we were in different divisions, so we didn't play against that much. But he was an intimidating dude, right? Here's this Korean guy that he was for a Korean guy. He's very big, very tall, and he was tough looking. So he was kind of intimidating. And then, funny, when I went to Penguins camp and he was there, him and I became really, really, really good friends in Pittsburgh. It was funny. I was going through a bunch of boxes this past weekend when I was out at our lake house, and I had a ton of pictures of Jimmy and I doing stuff. Like we went to Disneyland together when we were younger. We went on a bike trip to BC. We went to Cancun after we won the Stanley Cup the first year. I have all these pictures of Jimmy Paek. So Jimmy and I were really good buddies. Then when he had a chance to come over to Britain, he called me, and he was gonna go to, I think, Bracknell. I think he had a chance to come to us or Bracknell, and he called me, and and I just said, hey Jimmy, I'm saying this as your friend. As much as I would love to play with you, and I do want to play with you. I try to convince him to come to Nottingham, right? So and I'm glad he did. He came over, he did well. Yeah, and I still talk to him every now and then. When he was coaching in the American Hockey League, he would give me a call when he came to Winnipeg, and we'd go out for coffee. And I see now he's still over in Korea, which is awesome. I do talk to his wife every now and then on Facebook to see how they're doing. So I got lots of Jimmy Paek stories. I can't tell most of them, but him and I are good friends. And he's one of those guys that even though I might not see him again for another 5-6 years, when we do get together, it's like it's been like a day. So it's he's definitely one of my good buddies for sure.
Well, one of the things you always hear about Jim Paek is that, and then he was on this, I did an hour with him, and he is generally just the nicest guy in the world.
He is. He's a really nice guy. He's just one of those guys that's very likable, right? And that, I think that's what makes him, I guess, so likable, because he's just a down to earth and nice guy. Doesn't matter who you are or what your background, he's going to treat everybody the same. Absolutely.
And then I guess the highlight of your time in Pittsburgh would be the 2 Stanley Cups where you were part of the team and around the team sort of thing. What's it like being around the team during that?
It's pretty crazy. It's unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, it happened in my first 3 or 4 years professional, right? Here you go, here's my second year professional, and boom, we won a Stanley Cup. My third year professional, boom, we won another Stanley Cup, right? So it's, but it's pretty cool. Back then it was really cool. Now I couldn't even imagine it, all the craziness that's happening now with social media and all the information that's out there. I couldn't even imagine how crazy it is now. But we were pretty lucky. I think it was actually good for us because there wasn't all the social media and We just kind of stuck together as a team. That's one thing that we did really well in Pittsburgh, away from the rink, especially on the road. We did, quite a bit stuff together, and which I think really helped us. But I mean, it's an experience that it's so hard to put into words, but it was phenomenal. Like it was so neat watching, being a part of the process, and just, it's funny because I've done a few of these over the last month or so, and both Stanley Cups, going into the finals, we really kind of knew we were going to win. We were the better team. And I believe the first year against Minnesota, we lost the first 2 games, and then we won 4 straight. At no time were we concerned, or there was, what's happening here? And even the next year against Chicago, we beat them 4 straight, and we were such a good hockey team. We really were. And one thing, and I tell the story to people, when Bob Johnson kind of took over the team, and he kind of had a meeting with us and saying, you know what, from the red line back to our goal line, everybody has to play a certain way, including you, Mario. And he kind of pointed Mario out, and he goes, from the red line to their goal line, you guys are talented. You guys can pretty well do whatever you want, as long as we're playing the right way from, in our zone. So I think that's what made us such a great team.
Then you mentioned at the start of this that there's a book out about your career sort of thing. I'm guessing it focuses mainly on the NHL side of it. So I just want you to just before we get into the English, the hockey in England, so you talk about the book at this point.
So actually, the book's not. The book is life until I scored my first NHL goal.
Okay.
So I had a author get a hold of me named Anna Rosner. She's probably 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And she's part of this program called Books with Wings, or Books for Wings. And what this program does, it sends books to remote communities up north in Canada here, to the First Nation communities, or and the books are all geared toward preteens, teenagers, and they're motivational books. And so Anna is a director of this project. And she heard about my life story growing up with my dad, and being part of the NHL as a kid, and then kind of making it to the NHL. So she wrote this book about my life, literally from, like I said, putting my first pair of skates on until my first NHL goal. It is more for teens or preteens, but it's a really good read. She did a really good job of it. Obviously, there's no stories that shouldn't be in there, because it's towards younger people. But I've had a great people have been coming out. They've been buying the book a lot. It's actually it was on one of the bestseller lists for younger audience the last month or so. So it's been going really good. It's available on my Shoot to Score Hockey website. I have had a couple people from the UK buy the book and ship it over, and I think I know people are going to ask or maybe inquire. I think the shipping was about 6 or 7 pounds. It wasn't that much money. But yeah, it's something I'm very proud of. And it's funny how things happen. I had lots of, some of the reviews I got on the book is, well, it kind of stops after my first goal, and they want to hear more. So I'm like, okay, so now it's kind of putting a bug in my head, maybe I do more of a PG-13 or R-rated version of a book.
We will put up all the links to that and everything for people to check it out and stuff. So that is not a problem at all. And then, like I say, that gives the background to that. Obviously, you continued to play in the NHL for a little bit after your time in Pittsburgh and winning the Cups and things. But then it came to 96, 97, I want to say it was, when you decided to make the jump over the pond. How did that opportunity come around? Because you didn't sign for Nottingham first up.
No. So through the process in Pittsburgh, the Stanley Cups, Kenny Priestley and I became really good friends. And then, we hung out a lot together in Pittsburgh. And then I went to play in Rochester and a few other places. And then after the 96 season, he kind of got a hold of me and said, "Hey, playing over in Sheffield, England, we're looking for someone to come and score some goals. Are you interested in it?" And it was funny because it was probably the perfect time for him to call me. I got caught in the numbers game with Pittsburgh a little bit. I mean, they're a good hockey club. Don't get me wrong. I went to the Florida Panthers after that. Played really well in Florida. The organization did really well. Just never really got the opportunity. And then I went to sign with the Buffalo Sabres, and then I didn't get any opportunity there. So it was kind of, my opportunities weren't coming. I didn't care that I wasn't playing. I just wanted the opportunity. Give me the opportunity. So it wasn't happening. So I was kind of down on the whole North American deal, and I always wanted to go over to Europe. Or go over the ponds in some capacity. So then when Kenny contacted me, it was almost the perfect timing. All right. So you know what? I want to go over there. I haven't really enjoyed the game as much. Enjoyed the whole process of the game as much. So Kenny called me and said, "Hey, Sheffield Steelers are looking for, a player." And again, back then the internet was kind of getting going, right? So it was hard to find a whole bunch of info and about the level of play and all that fun stuff. So I did. So I decided, why not? I did have a chance to go to the Philadelphia Flyers training camp that year. And so, but I mean, Bobby Clark was, obviously I know Bobby Clark quite well, and I had a phone call with Clarky, and he goes, "Jamie, there's one thing I got to say is, I'm being honest with you, the Flyers don't have any room for more contracts. So you come to camp, you do well, I'll try and get you a contract somewhere else." So there was no guarantee, and I was late 20s then, I think I was, and I couldn't go to a Flyers camp and get injured. If I got injured, then I'm didn't make any sense for me. So I did end up going and signing with the Steelers. So and that's kind of how it started, and I played a year with Sheffield, and those of you that don't know, I had something happen with Shannon Hope. Got a pretty major injury to my cheek, and then the next year, Mike Blaisdell called me after the year in Sheffield, and it's funny how hockey works. Blazer was actually a teammate of my dad's in Detroit.
Oh wow!
So Blazer called me, "Hey Jamie, I want you to come and play for us." I said, "Absolutely, 100%. Let's go." So and then I signed with Nottingham for a couple of years, and then a couple of years after that again.
And making that jump from Sheffield to Nottingham is not in UK hockey circles. That's not a small jump. Not many players do it, and when players do it, they don't always generally succeed when they do it. How did you find going from Sheffield to Nottingham?
I loved it. Nothing against Sheffield, nothing against the organization, nothing against the town. Just that situation what happened with Shannon Hope really put a sour taste in my mouth. With Sheffield. Again, nothing against anybody there. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not doing anything like that. It was nice for me to go to Nottingham, right? Well, there we go. I'm going to their biggest rivals, right? Which I really thrived for, right? And you know what? As my first few times in Sheffield, I was okay with the boos. I'm okay with that. I mean, geez, I played all over the place. I've been booed plenty of times. To go to Sheffield and be booed by a few thousand fans, I'm okay with that. And you know what? For me, I liked it. I liked that pressure I put on myself. All right, Jamie, you chose to go to their rivals. Now, you can't just put your gear on and show up. No, you got to go out there and perform. So, from what I recall, I don't know the stats at all, but I think I did pretty well against the Steelers when I played against them with wearing a Panthers jersey.
And for people who don't know, there are a lot of people who didn't get to experience that old rink in Nottingham. Set the scene for me for that old rink in Nottingham. Because people speak, when you talk to people, they talk about with a glint in their eye, and people really fell in love with that old arena. Tell me how you felt about it.
Well, so just think. I mean, our generation now is different. They want everything to be the best. They want everything. That's what they want. For me, going from Sheffield, which was, as you know, the nicest rink in really in the league, to Nottingham, which was not the nicest rink in the league by far. But I just, even when I played for the Steelers, I loved going on. I just loved the atmosphere. Like, it was really, as much as I hated that screen, behind our bench, I hated the screen in the corner. Like, I think they finally put some glass in there. I loved the atmosphere in Nottingham, and it was great to play for the Panthers and be in that building and experience that atmosphere every home game. It was phenomenal, and it definitely gave us an advantage. I mean, teams didn't want to go in there. I mean, not that we were a tough team, but it just wasn't a very nice place to play, right? But I loved it. I mean, as much as I was happy, you know, I played 1 year in the new rink, but which I was happy about. I still miss that old building. That old building was phenomenal.
Is it guys like Paul Adey, Greg Haddon, Randall Webber that are helping you settle in Nottingham? Because obviously their names in Panthers folklore, they've been around the team for, I think 2 of them are technically classed as Brits, even though they're not. But are they the guys who help you settle in Nottingham and get you used to the city and things? Or is there someone else on the team who does that?
Well, so I mean, again, I wasn't a 20-year-old kid then. I was a little bit older. So and I knew, you know, because we played against Nottingham so much as well. So it's one thing that I was on the ice as much as, you know, if you played for Nottingham or Sheffield and I was on the team, I didn't dislike you. I didn't like playing against you, but I mean, still on the ice, I'd say, you know, hey, how's it going? You know, how are things? You know, and especially guys that I kind of were familiar with, and there were some players on Nottingham that I was familiar with. I mean, Derek Laxdal, him and I trained. He had a summer house just a couple miles from mine here in Canada, right? So we hung out a lot in the summer, right? I mean, so Laxy and I, you know, we're tight. You know, Randall and I hit it off right away as well, right? It was kind of odd, you know. I mean, which is good. I mean, I talk to Randall quite a bit now. Still, I mean, Randall and I are quite good friends. But just walking in, you know, guys like Greg Haddon, you know, again, I didn't know him personally, but I mean, just playing against him and knowing what kind of player he was. You know, Paul Adey was great. Garth Premack, him and I played junior together. He was a captain then when I was there. So there was lots of familiar faces in Nottingham, and which made that transition so much easier for sure.
So funny how the hockey is such a big world, but it's so small at the same time. There's always a link back somewhere else whatever team you're on. Absolutely,
100%. That's so true.
Were there any rinks that you liked visiting during your time in England? Like say, like you got the road trips up to Ayr and things like that, or down to Bracknell. Were there any road trips you enjoyed, or any away rinks you liked visiting?
Well, I think when Belfast came into the league was kind
everyone says that for some reason.
Well, and the reason why for me it was, remember, I was, you know, coming from teams that, you know, not just, I mean, in NHL where I was, we flew everywhere, obviously, which was nice. But even some of the minor teams that I played, you know, we flew and so that was, I liked that a part about Belfast, kind of more of that professional NHL feel, right? Oh, we get to meet at the airport, we get on a plane, we stay at a hotel. I mean, you know, very little times when I, you know, before Belfast did we actually stay in a hotel, right? We were always there and out. You know, get up in the morning, get on the bus, go play, turn around, and come back, right? So that's the part that I liked about Belfast, right? We got to fly in there, we got to you know play the game, have a few beers. You know, usually they were scheduled where the next day was a day off, so we'd have a good time in Belfast as a team, which all teams need. And then we got back in the plane, came back the next day. So that was and it was really neat because I think the Belfast organization did a phenomenal job. They really did. They promoted it really well. It was very well attended. Every time we went there was lots of people in the stands, and you know, it doesn't matter where we go. You know, when there's lots of people in the stands, it just makes it so much nicer.
You mentioned a name earlier that a lot of Panthers fans will have heard, but not necessarily know a lot about, and that's Mike Blaisdell. So can you just tell me a little bit about Mike Blaisdell, the coach?
Blazer was definitely a player's coach, right? He liked to, you know, get involved in the drills during practice, and he's still in pretty good shape. Really good, you know, talker in the room, and he knew how to kind of get guys going, and just he was a very nice guy. He was a good communicator. He was definitely one of those guys that you would feel that you can go and talk to him about anything, right? And he'd also be one of those guys, like I think he wanted to be one of the boys, which is fine. You know, every now and then he'd come upstairs, you know, in the old room upstairs in the old building for a couple pints after, right, and hang out with the guys and tell some stories, you know. So really good guy. I mean, Blazer did really well. It's funny, I saw Blazer about 4 or 5 years ago. I was in a rink here in Winnipeg, and I saw him. So it was nice to say hi to him and catch up with him.
And the other guy who, like, obviously is synonymous with Panthers is also Alex Dampier, who was your coach in Sheffield. So was there a difference between him and Blazer?
Yeah.
Because obviously he was more successful with Nottingham in the late 80s, I think, was Alex Dampier.
Yeah. So I mean, I only had Damps for I think a year.
Yeah, and then he was kind of involved in the first year in the arena, wasn't he?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So he was my coach in Sheffield, and so it was. The level of coaching over there was a little bit different from what I was used to.
Yeah, I can imagine.
and you know what? I'm not faulting anybody. It's just
how it is.
It is. I mean, the year before I came to Sheffield, I had John Tortorella as my coach in Rochester, right? And to go from John Tortorella to anybody would be a different. But going to John Tortorella to Alex or Blazer is just such a wide gap of how things, I'm used to, things being done, right? But I mean, both guys were good communicators. They were good people, right? Which was nice. Maybe and I think a lot of the teams over there that did well, they had pretty good coaches, right? I mean, and a lot of over there that's why I asked earlier about who the GM was. I know when I was involved in that league, the coaches that brought in the proper players, they're the teams that did really well. I don't know how strong the coaching was from other teams. And when I say that, I mean the X's and O's, right? The game, the team concepts. That's what I'm talking about. The teams that did well over there, that were successful, just seemed to get the right players.
And then, it totally makes sense. But I've got to go back a little bit now because you mentioned John Tortorella, and everyone knows him as this great character of the game. Like you see his press conferences, you see him on the bench. He's this. You've got to have a John Tortorella story.
Well, yeah, you know what? How you see him in some of the press conferences and stuff is kind of how he managed the locker room. It was his way or the highway. There's no doubt about that. I have one story. It's not a bad story. So he would give us, so a lot of times in Rochester, we would play a Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday afternoon. So we played 3 games in 2.5 days. Well, he would give us Mondays off, right? And then Tuesday we would come to the rink and he would skate the snot out of us, like literally for an hour, and just hard. And some of the older players, me including, we went to him and said, "Okay, Torts, here's the deal. If you're gonna do that every Tuesday, we don't want Monday off. We will come to the rink." And because it was crazy, I mean, it wasn't a punishment skate. It was just, he felt that instead of we had a day off, we got to skate harder. And so we kind of backed off, which was nice because guys just did not want to go to the rink on Tuesday, right? It wasn't good at all. And so he actually kind of relaxed on that with us, which was nice. I mean, so I mean, that's my one, Tortorella story. I don't mind telling. So, but like I said, how he wasn't with the press, and even when he up here in Canada, he was on TSN, one of the panelists. It's kind of how he was in the locker room.
And after your first year in Nottingham, like you re-signed, you came back for 3 more years after that. Did you just fall in love with the city or the team, or what was it that kept you coming back to Nottingham?
I fell in love with everything. I liked. I mean, I think I just like the whole setup of Nottingham, right? The rink was downtown, right? After you can leave your car at the rink, you can walk downtown, get something to eat at lunch, and then go back, and then it was just nice that everything was kind of in the same area. And then the more I spent time downtown, get to know more people, got to hang a lot with a lot of the supporters. That's one thing that I was a big supporter of. In the old rink, new rink, I wanted to go up and into the sponsors lounge after and maybe have a couple pints and talk to some people, and there's some people in Nottingham that I'm really good friends with, and I still keep in touch with them, right? And that's all from just going up to the supporters lounge after a game, right? And so I got to, Nottingham really embraced me when I got there, which was phenomenal, and it also helps. Was it the second or third year that I was there that we were really good? We were a really good hockey team. I don't know if you know this, Stan, but we played every single game we could possibly play that year. We went to every final.
Oh, wow.
We couldn't have played any more games if we tried that year. We only won one thing, but I mean, we went to every single game we could possibly play. We played that year. And, you know, obviously, you know, when you're winning, everyone's happy and it makes it great. But I love Nottingham. I love the old rink. I love the new rink. You know, I just loved everything about the organization for sure.
And like you say, that you built a relationship with the fans by like going up to the bar after the game and talking to them. Did you felt like, were they trepidatious with you at first because you come from Sheffield? Like, did it take them a while to warm to you?
No, I don't think so, because from what I recall, when I got to Nottingham, I actually scored a bunch of goals my first 10 games. Right, I actually
That helps.
Absolutely, right. Like I said, when you're successful and winning, it makes everything so much easier, right? So I think I know that definitely helped. And one thing that people, I think, in Nottingham realize about me. So one thing when I went to Sheffield, I was coming over as kind of like the next best thing since sliced bread, and that's not my game, right? I'm not going to go through the whole team, right? I'm not going to skate through everybody. I'm not a great skater, but you know, I'm a power forward. I'm going to finish my checks. I'm going to shoot the puck, and hopefully I get lucky and score some goals. And I think when I went to Nottingham, I think, you know, people didn't have that high expectations of me to come in, you know, and score 80 goals in 30 games kind of thing. And where I think in Sheffield they had high expectations with me. And so I went to Nottingham, and then just played my game. And then I think once I was given the C by Blazer and I was a captain, you know, my role changed a little bit. I wanted to become more of a complete player and make sure I played well on both sides of the pocket and honest. And one thing I always thought I was an honest hockey player. If you know, I didn't cut corners, I didn't cheat. I worked as hard as I possibly can. And when the smoke cleared, hopefully things were good.
And like I say, you got the C just in your second year in Nottingham from Blaisdell. How much did that mean to you to get the captaincy?
Oh, it's huge. It was huge because Garth Premack retired, and we all thought Paul Adey was getting it, right. It was funny because Blazer almost blindsided me. I'm skating around in practice, and all of a sudden he comes like, "Hey, you want to be the captain?" That's just like, really, right? Like, and I was like, absolutely. But I mean, I was, you know, I mean, maybe some fans weren't happy that Paul didn't get it. I don't know the scenario. Maybe Blazer asked Paul and he didn't want it. I don't know, but I was thrilled to death that Blazer asked me. You know, and I took that role extremely serious, right? I mean, wearing a C was the first time I've been assistant captains for many teams, but wearing a C for me was quite the responsibility, and I was more than happy to do it. I loved it. And
the really cool thing about you wearing that C is that you, like you say, you got to lift the trophy as the captain that year, the Benson and Hedges Cup in Sheffield. Now, we put those games on YouTube a few months back. Like, we ran like the semi-final home leg against Manchester and then the final against Ayr. And you were really underdogs going into the semi-final and the final, because Manchester had this incredible team.
Yeah. So one thing about that scenario of how those tournaments were run, you know, we're used to this. You know, we all do it, right? But these are one-off games, right? So anybody has a chance to win. I don't care who it was. I mean, anyone has a chance to win those one-off games, and especially against Ayr. I agree. I think we were the underdogs. I think Ayr had a better team than we did, but just one of those things where, hey, it's a one-off game, a bounce here, a bounce there. You know, all of a sudden, then we end up winning it. I mean, one of the things that was very vocal when I was over with the playoffs, because the playoffs, as you know, used to be run like that as well. It was like a weekend tournament almost, right? So, you know, and my last year there, I think it was my last year there, they actually did a little bit of a mini series to get teams going through. I'm not sure how it works now, Dan, but that's one thing I was a big proponent of, is trying to get them. You know, yes, if you want to do your finals weekend of 4 weekend, that's fine, but you know, maybe have some kind of a, you know, best of 3 series, and that's how you develop rivalries, really. Like, you know, as much as, yeah, Sheffield and Nottingham were rivals, but I mean, you want to start developing something, start having some games like that. So, but yeah, the B&H Cup was really cool, and I didn't really know what the B&H Cup was until after I won it and did some research on it. It was a pretty cool trophy. I didn't realize how big it was. It was actually a really neat trophy. So.
And you get to win it in like a quote unquote neutral venue, as neutral as Sheffield can be for Nottingham. Does that add to the spectacle of it for you when you go there to this one-off game and this one-off in a neutral venue? Does that add to the whole pomp and circumstance around it?
Well, I think for us, being in Sheffield was phenomenal. Right? For us raising the Teenage Cup in Sheffield was, was pretty special. I mean, let's be a little extra motivation. Hey, we get to raise this cup in their building, which, definitely for me, for sure, he was definitely a part of a motivating factor, definitely.
And one of the big players I remember from watching the replay of that game when we put it over was Trevor Robbins, the goalie. He was spectacular.
Trevor was a great goalie. That for the whole 4 years I was in Nottingham. He's one of those guys that you can never say Trevor didn't work hard. You can never say he wasn't a competitor. Every day practice. I remember one of my first few days in Sheffield, Nottingham, in practice. I went down there, and I've been around, so I know I'm not going to go high on a goalie unless I know I'm not going to hit him, right? And so I took a shot on Trevor, and it was a missed shot. I wasn't trying to go high, and it went right by his ear, and he came after me. And I started to say, Trevor, if that happens, it's an accident. Trust me, I'm not going to go high and hard on you. And then from then, him and I were great. And I'm only going to go high on you unless I know I'm on that day, right? I'm not going to hit you in the collarbone. So, but he was a phenomenal teammate. He was such a different person at the rink than he was, away from the rink. But that's what made him successful, right? He came to the rink and it was all business, right? On game day, you couldn't speak to him. You couldn't even acknowledge him in the room. He would just come to the rink, and people knew, just leave him alone. And if he ever asked you a question on, before a game, or you're like, whoa, why is this guy talking to me? He almost kind of caught you off guard. But away from the rink, Trevor was a great guy. He was phenomenal for us that year. Definitely, he's definitely one of the reasons why we went to every single game we could have.
It's like they say, goalies are just built a little bit differently, aren't they?
They are, but he was definitely one of those over-the-top goalies, for sure.
And then when you came over to play, obviously you played at the highest standard possible in the NHL. How did you find the standard of hockey over here?
Well, the one thing I can say from year 1 to year 4, it was totally different, right? Year 1, every team had one good line, good 5 or 6 players, right? And then depending on how much money you had or whatever, hopefully you can extend that to 10 or 12 players. And that's one thing that made teams like Sheffield so successful, because they had money to bring over and be a deeper team. Towards the end, it was a lot better, because there was players that, like for instance, a guy like a Glenn Movena was a third line player at the end, but he had a role. But here's Glenn Movena playing. He played the NHL too. He's playing on the third line, right? So it was a lot deeper. My first year in Sheffield, we went to Edinburgh for a training camp per se, and so we went there for 3 or 4 days. I can't remember, and I came back. And we haven't played any games yet. We just kind of scrimmaged each other, and I almost went home. I was very close to going home, because it just wasn't what I thought. Like you said, the standard wasn't nearly what I thought it could be, so I actually decided to stick it out. I'm going to play a few games, and then I'll decide what I want to do. So I'm glad I did. I stuck it out. We played. I think we played a couple exhibition games, and then I think we played our pre-B&H. I think back then you played some of the lower teams, I think, for,
it rings a bell.
To try and qualify for the B&H Cup. And that just put me right at ease. Said, okay, it's not as bad, it's not as bad as I thought. So I'm glad I stuck it out, right? It was all of a sudden, I spent 5 years in the UK.
And one of the things that, whenever you talk to imports, one of the things that does sometimes, obviously it's a bit different now with social media, because when you announce a player, fans are always tweeting them, saying, welcome to this place, is that what surprises imports, I find, is that the knowledge that people in the UK have about the game and their passion for it, the way they follow their team around the country. Like, you'll be playing in Ayr on a Wednesday night, and you'll still have Panthers fans up there with you.
Well, so and the reason they're not comfortable with that, or they don't, that doesn't happen over here. Right? Not many people. A special occasion, you'll get in a plane and fly to so here in Winnipeg, one of the big things people in Winnipeg here is when the Jets are down in Las Vegas. There's tons of people that go down to Las Vegas, right? I mean, like you're in Winnipeg going to Las Vegas. Of course, you're going to go there for a couple of days and watch a Jets game kind of thing. But over there, like you said, no matter where we went, there they were, right? It was amazing, and depending on where, obviously, in Sheffield there'd be a lot of people, right? If you can get tickets, right? And Manchester, places that were kind of close. But I mean, yeah, even when we go to Ayr, Christ, there's still 50 people here. Like it's just nothing that we see back home, right? That doesn't happen.
And then you about your third year in Nottingham. It's kind of you don't win any trophies, but you're still the captain. One of the big things is that Mike Blaisdell gets replaced by Alex Dampier. And as the captain, can you just take me inside the locker room with how that goes down when that change takes place? So, when a coach gets replaced mid-season, what does that do to you as a captain?
So what I did was, even when I was captain with Blazer, one thing even in Sheffield, I kind of started this in Sheffield a little bit. And especially the players that were from North America that were over there, I asked the team if we could have ice on game days, right? And we'd come down as a team, and it wouldn't be mandatory, but I mean, let's just get the players out of bed and let's go for a skate. And so we started that in Sheffield, and then even in Nottingham, we kind of asked Blazer if we could do that, and then we started doing it. And then even when Blazer was there, Blazer would just show up, right? And he wouldn't come on the ice. He would just show up and see what we're doing, and we just go on the ice and shoot around and just to kind of get out of bed and do something. But even after the skate, I started having little mini meetings, and it doesn't even have to be about, especially when I was a captain, it didn't have to be about hockey. Just say, what's going on? Let's how about we get together Monday night and have a few beers as a team. We won't play till Friday, and just kind of get to know players a little bit. But I took more of a hockey related role when Damps replaced Blazer. Just to add something different, right? Nothing against anybody, but we would have a pregame skate, and then we'd talk about, hey, let's tonight we're playing Sheffield. Let's watch out for this guy. They like to do this, and try and take more of a coaching role to maybe help the transition a little bit. It's never easy having a new coach come in. It's kind of exciting, right? Love, height, whatever you like the coach before, having a new boss come in is kind of exciting. You're anticipating some different things. Let's say we're going to see some different drills. We're going to hear a different voice yelling at us, right, kind of thing. So, it's definitely there's definitely some for me it was exciting. For some players, it might be some anxiety because, hey, Blazer really liked me, he played me at this point. Now what's going to happen with this coach? And for me, it kind of set the reset button for everybody. If a new guy comes in, maybe you want to be a little bit tougher. Well, here's your chance. All right, here's your chance to make, as you only get one chance to make a first impression. So, so hopefully here it is. So that's what I liked about any team I was with, where there's a new coach coming in, that was kind of your chance to maybe make a new impression on somebody.
And then you were part of the team that made the transition from the old rink to the new arena. That must have been a really cool thing to see that getting built and to know that's going to be your next home sort of thing. And then to actually finally get in there. How was that?
Well, it was exciting because the rink was supposed to be built like 2 years before we got in.
It's government funded. Don't be surprised.
Well, so for me, as much as I love the old rink, and it was just nice to go into a building that was that when you walked off the ice through the hallway into your locker room, you didn't go through a cloud of smoke. I'll never forget the first time I played in Nottingham, and this was back. So I played with the Canadian national team, and we actually did a tour in the UK, and we played against Nottingham, and But anyway, we played a few different. I remember going to Nottingham, and that was when they had netting around the whole building, not any glass. I remember getting hit into the corner, and the corner of my helmet got stuck in the netting. And I'm trying to pull my head out. It's like I couldn't. So I think I just took my helmet off and skated off the ice. So that's one. And then two, after the period, you had to walk underneath and you had to cross basically like the corridor to go to the visiting team's locker room. I remember the cigarette smoke. I couldn't believe it. Everyone's in the hallway smoking away. They're smoking. But then when I played for the Panthers, we had I can't remember who it was who sat right next to the door that in the locker room that came in. All we kept saying to him, "Close the door! Close the door!" Because all the smoke would come bellowing into our locker room. So it's those things that I really enjoyed about the old building for sure, definitely. And then you go to the new building and it's a lot different. We got a nice little locker room. We got a nice little place to change, put our clothes away, and it's almost going from the outhouse to the penthouse, right? Which was kind of cool.
And you must feel a sense of pride because you've been through this, like I say, it was 2 years in the making, but you've been through this project, and it's kind of the growth of hockey in the city, thanks to like you and the teams that have been in Nottingham through those years.
So I think one thing that I'm very proud of is myself, Steve Carpenter, Steve Roberts. We were kind of the single guys, at that time, and we were the ones that used to go out and give tickets to businesses and stuff like that, and try and get more and more people to come to the games, right? And especially the year that we were in the big building, right? Because we had, here we came from a 2,500 seat building to a place that's 5,000-6,000. I'm not sure what it holds, but something like 5,000 or 6,000 people it held, right? We were out there trying to give tickets away and get people involved in the game. And it's funny, my entire time in England, whenever I gave tickets to someone who was a non-hockey, someone who didn't follow the sport, and I would say, after the game, give me a call or let's go for a pint somewhere. They would just sit there and go, "Wow, what was that? I've been missing this for how long?" I said, "Yeah, nothing against football, but you can go to a 90-minute game and see 5 shots on net the entire 90 minutes.
And no goals.
No goals. Hockey, you can get 5 shots in a power play. And it's every person I shared tickets with, they would just say, "Thank you very much." And a lot of them actually became supporters. They became ticket holders, right? Just to go and that's something that, like I said, Carps, myself, and Robs, we did. We went and had a good time while we're doing it. I'm not going to, let's not what's called spade a spade. But I mean, we actually, I think, helped create, to get some different blood inside the new building. So I love that.
And you had some pretty cool additions to the team that year as well. First of all, you get reunited with Jim Paek. It must have been amazing for you to see him again and dress on the same team again.
Absolutely. And Jimmy he sat right next to me in the locker room, which was kind of cool. And it was nice getting back together with him, because I never thought that would happen. So that was good. And he was a good presence in the locker room, obviously with his background and coming in. And so yes, I think that helped our whole room for sure.
And then the guy you would have played against the year before, I'm sure you were glad he was on your team this year, is Barry Nykar.
Right. I mean, so again, hockey is a small world. I played with Barry in Springfield, right? Okay. So, and the one thing, I mean, Barry wasn't really someone that I was concerned about because he played in London, correct?
Yes.
I think, but before, so I wasn't concerned about that. And again, one thing with players that are in his role, especially back, in North America, those players worry about those type of players, right? I mean, so a guy like Barry Nykar is not going to go after a Paul 80. Right. I mean, something like that. So, but it was nice to have Nikes on our team. It was nice to reconnect with him. And he was, a huge part of our team. That's when the league changed a little bit, kind of got a little goofy, teams bringing a lot of those kind of guys. I'm not sure how it is now.
It's much better now.
It's much better. It was like for my last 2 years was bad. Like, even though they were bringing better hockey players in, they were also bringing these guys in that we're just changing the whole dynamic of the game. So anyway, you're right, 100%. It was nice to have Barry on our team for sure.
Yeah, because I think British hockey went through a bit of a renaissance in the 90s, and then it kind of went, and yet the standard, because it was just like a bunch of like players, like you mentioned, like yourself, where guys came over, worked hard, just did what they were supposed to do, and it was good and fun to watch. And then throughout the early 2000s, it kind of went, like you say, goofy with a lot of the tough guys and stuff, and that kind of like skewed the audience to get, oh, this is what hockey is, when that's not actually. I think now the standard is as high as it's ever been, and there is a lot more focus on speed and skill. But because of what people were conditioned to in the early 2000s, they missed not like a bit of the physical stuff occasionally.
Absolutely, 100%. It was really physical there, especially the last year. I mean, as you know, we had the big brawl against Sheffield there, and it's just it was just something that I can't remember who even started it. Like one team would bring in one guy.
I think
Cardiff actually kind of started. Cardiff kind of always had a tougher team, and then the one year they brought in like 3 guys, and you're like, oh my word, right? And again, for me, I'm not worried about it. I wasn't a fighter. I mean, I fight the guys. I have no problem with that. But I mean, it wasn't intimidation to someone like myself, but a lot of the smaller players, and especially players that aren't used to playing that kind of hockey. I mean, we played that kind of hockey in junior, so I was used to that kind of hockey. So it wasn't a big thing for me, but it definitely changed. Absolutely, I agree 100%. I'm glad to hear that it actually went back to how let's bring in more skill.
Well, now it's more like guys who can fight but can play and actually contribute to the team. And that's what you need. Like, you need that element of physical, you need that element of danger there, but the guy's got to be able to contribute, not just be a one-dimensional, quote unquote goon. And
that's changed through the whole dynamic of hockey throughout the whole world. Even here, you don't have too many players that are playing at a high level that are in there for that role that cannot at least contribute, to actually playing the game. So.
I think that's why you get a lot of times like fan favorites are the ones who get stuck in the corners, because like the art of the open ice hit is like it's almost lost. But there are some guys who still can manage it in a clean open ice hit, and they're the kind of things that catch your eye when they happen.
Absolutely, for sure.
And then like you mentioned the thing that happened with Sheffield, and the 9th of February 2001. It's a date that lives in infamy in British hockey circles. What do you remember about that game?
Well, it was almost something that was building up, right? We had games, and it was just goofy. Like, it was every game. You're like, oh, what's Vial going to do this time, right? And of course he would do something stupid, and then all of a sudden it just boiling point. And from what I understand, from what I remember, is Blazer's the one that sent the Steelers over the bench, and then boom, everyone was over, and then the things that happened that shouldn't have happened, like Allison scaling the glass over from the penalty box and stuff like that. That happens. That was something I think British ice hockey has never seen before, had dealt with before. I think they handled it completely wrong. There should have been some massive suspensions over there, and it never would have happened again. I mean, someone leaving the penalty box and carrying out a fight is just over here. If it happened in North America, you'd be gone for a long time, right? Because we don't want that to happen. It was one of those things where I was a captain. I'm trying to break things up, right? I'm on the ice and the referees. I can't remember who was referee.
Is it Murray Hansen?
I just saw it on the referee and the linesman. They were scared to death, right? So I remember talking to one of the linesmen. I said, "What you need to do is you guys both need to grab somebody and take them off the ice and get rid of them." Okay, and then you wait till another group gets tired and they fall down. You grab one, and you take them off. I said, you can't all break it up at once. You need to start to let things happen, and eventually the guys are just going to get tired. And because I've been involved in these before, and that's what happens over here. They just let it happen. All of a sudden, guys get tired and they just start bringing them off the ice, right? And then it just calms down. But there, everything and then all of a sudden, I'm not sure who it was. I think it was Allison came out of the locker room again. He came on the ice, and you're just like, okay, what's happening, right? So, I mean, thankfully, we're very fortunate that no one got seriously hurt in that. Like, we really were, because someone could have got seriously hurt. Like, I mean, you got someone like Barry Nygaard, who was as strong as anybody, who he could have really, really seriously hurt somebody, right? And especially when you had the lines when they weren't breaking it up, nothing was happening. But yeah, it was definitely something that I'm not. it happened and it was unfortunate. And I've been in them before, and they're not fun. It's because you're always kind of looking behind you, what's happening, because you never know when guys get all wound up what's going to happen. So, yeah, I just remember being part of that. I remember watching the news the next day and going, "Oh my, this is not
good." like you mentioned that, and just thinking on the spot here, you said that people didn't know how to deal with that sort of thing. Do you think that the league didn't deal with it in the way that they should have? Do you think the league got infatuated with the attention that brought them potentially, and that's why they went down that goofy road?
Possibly. I never thought of it that way, but possibly. I mean, now they've kind of become national news, right?
Mm.
But I mean, as you know, Dan, there's good news, there's bad news,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you want to try and be on more of the. Maybe it was bad. It was bad news for them, but now, as a league, maybe you got to step up and, come out with, this player got this many game suspension. This player, Mike Blaisdell, he sent his players over. He got this suspension, and that's something that I think was a missed opportunity for them to bear down on that, right? Because you don't want that to happen. It doesn't happen anymore over here. Because if it does happen, you get thrown. like your coaches get suspended for a year, right? I mean, so you're supposed to have control of your bench.
And that year was your last year in the UK. Was it just time to move on after that? Were you just ready to...
I was getting more into the coaching side of things, and I came home and I got a call from a junior team in Manitoba here, asked if I wanted to be coach GM of their junior team, and I said, yeah, I think I'll take this on. Hindsight, I probably should have started that there earlier, right? I probably should have getting to the coaching part earlier and maybe become a player assistant coach, and then eventually maybe become a head coach somewhere over there. That's but saying that, I mean, I got to come back here. I've been a junior coach for 5 or 6 years, and then I started my own company. So just it's funny how where your paths kind of take you, right? As much as I wanted to be a coach at the professional level, now I own 3 businesses here in Canada. I'm my own boss, so I work as hard as I need to work, or want to work, and it's just funny how things take. And it's all back to my experience through hockey, right? Experience of being a captain, trying to be a leader, trying to be organized. It all comes back through my experiences through the game of hockey.
One thing that when you talk to any hockey player, they're always very grateful for the things the game has given them, and they're always very keen to give back. And that's what the coaching side that I assume brings to you. It's your chance to give back to the game.
100%. So one thing that when I first started here, after I decided to step away from the coaching, is I created Shoot to Score Hockey, and what we started was my dad and I. What we started is we were involved with organizations that had hockey schools in bigger communities, First Nation hockey schools for Indigenous players. And what would happen is all these different reserves all over the north would send 10 kids down, and we'd have this big hockey school for a week, and they'd spend a ton of money. And then my dad and I sat down. I said, well, why don't we, instead of having the kids come down to us, why don't we go to them? And then they can spend a ton of money, and then we can blanket the whole community, not just 10 players that they sent down. So that's kind of how Shoot to Score Hockey got developed. And so we did. Myself, my dad, we'd go to, say Norway House in Manitoba, Norway House First Nation, and all of a sudden we get to work with 100 kids, for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which was awesome, right? I mean, everyone got a good experience, and since then we have now visited close to 100 different communities all across Canada. So that's something that we're real proud of. We're doing as much giving back as we possibly can, especially my dad was raised in a First Nation family, and so it's nice for us to go back and kind of give back to these communities for sure.
Well, that's awesome, and I can't thank you enough for giving up so much of your time today. This has been a real education for me on British hockey from back in the days before I was watching it and things like that. So this has been amazing. But I do have one steadfast rule on this show. With the current state of the world that it's in, the show has to end on a laugh. There has to be a funny story to close things out. It can be from your time in the UK, from anywhere in your hockey, on the bus, off the ice, on this, a moment in a game, be anything that just makes you laugh.
Oh, that's hard. That's hard. You know, I should have thought something before I came on the ice. But so,
It's more fun when you put people on the spot.
I tell the story. So I mean, I was raised in the Philadelphia area. Been a huge Flyers fan when I was younger. When I told you I got to skate on the ice, the Spectrum all by myself, and you know, I get all these wonderful things. And the one thing that I was hoping to get drafted, and I did, and I was hoping to get drafted by the Flyers, but I got drafted by the Penguins. And so my first, and I was at the Spectrum as a kid, my entire life, right? But never as a player. And so I remember going to Philadelphia with the Penguins for my first time. It was kind of cool because, I mean, I got to see my family the night before and went home, had supper, saw some of my friends, did my pregame skate and did all the things that I've been watching players do for years. Now I get to do it. Pregame skate, found out that I'm playing, which was even more exciting. Okay, I'm actually going to play tonight. So got dressed, and in Philadelphia, going on the ice, you walked through the Zamboni entrance, and they had like a little runway for you, so you didn't get stuff thrown at you as you're coming on the ice. So I'm walking through, and as I'm going out for warm up, I remember saying to myself, walking down the tunnel, this is it, right? I'm gonna walk on the ice. There's gonna be people in the stands coming to watch me play. So I step on the ice. I am not 2 feet on the ice, and I hear, "Leach, you suck!" Here's my one experience. This is my one time. I'm really going to enjoy this experience. And this jackass fan yells that I suck. But that's, you know what? And now, I mean, it really it was, not very nice then. But now knowing the Philadelphia fans, that's just what they're like, right? It was, and he was I'm hoping this guy knows who he is. I hope he's heard this story, but, and he's probably thinking, I just wrecked this kid's day, right? Going on the ice. So, I know it's not a funny story, but it kind of is. I mean,
that is funny. I enjoyed it.
Built up day, and this guy just rained on my parade.
Well, like I said, Jay, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a privilege. I've learned so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Everyone, hi from Nottingham. Or in Nottingham, thank you. Hi from Nottingham. Thank you for everyone for everything you've done. It was phenomenal.
Are you looking for a new mortgage? Get unbiased advice from our team of experts at the Nottingham Mortgage Services. Secure the right deal, and you could save money on your mortgage. Visit thenottingham.com/mortgages and let us help.